So first we look at all possible earthquake sources and all possible earthquakes that come from those sources. We then look at each of those possible earthquakes and say, for that possible event, this is what it means at my site. And then we take that level of shaking and we temper it by the likelihood that that event actually occurs. And we add them all together. It's a 13 integral equation, much more complex than F equals MA, but it's just all a bunch of computer work that does it. So in order to do the first step, to determine all of the sources and the likelihood, we have to look at a whole bunch of different information. We look at where earthquakes occur, so what we call the seismicity catalog. We look at geology, tectonics. We have people who are experts in historical seismicity. They scan old newspapers looking for discussions of things that happened in the past. We look at evidence in the landscape, paleoseismicity, crustal motions. There's huge GPS systems now that are all over the US that look at how the crust strains, geophysics. All those kinds of things are needed to pull together to try and understand how the earth works. The utilities say that we're too hard. The interveners say we're too easy. Regulators are, industries are over-regulated until something bad happens and then there's not enough regulation. And so you're always like squished in the middle. And it was a little bit tough for me before, but because one of the reasons I went to the NRC was to help make sure the new plants were safe. I pushed for a lot of changes, and I was very fortunate in that the NRC is very progressive. It's a very, very progressive agency. At this point, because all of those people were ready to retire, and they have, because they didn't like the new workload, about 75% of the NRC staff has been there 5 years or less. They're very, not necessarily young, but new to the agency. They've come from outside. They know what's happening in the outside world. And so because of that, the management there is very open to progressive ideas. They have to be. And so I was allowed to get a lot of work started. There wasn't a seismic research plan before I showed up, and that was in 2006. There was one, but it was very anemic, not really a program at all. And so when Fukushima happened, of course I knew more about the NRC seismic safety than probably anyone in the agency. So I worked 16 hours a day for about 6 weeks. I was called up as an emergency responder. I was answering emails that were sent by the president. That was very, very stressful. And since then, so because of that reason, I've become very high profile. And so it's really hard being high profile and known in a very contentious field. As you can imagine, you've probably seen, there were 2 articles today in the NRC, about the NRC in the Wall Street Journal. I've been quoted in the New York Times. They have my cell phone number. I've been on C-SPAN. You would not believe how many people watch C-SPAN until you're actually on it. Like, what do well, maybe you guys do, I don't know, I shouldn't say. But it's really hard, and to the point where the media is actually investigating me personally. They're looking for dirt on me personally to be part of the story of how evil the NRC is. And so that's a tremendous personal challenge, and it's really hard because you're there trying to do the right thing, and yet you just say, screw this, I don't need this, And yet what do? Let the process beat you down? Like, you can't. And I, of course, work with the technical body, not the regulators. And so I work with a lot of very frustrated people because it's like doing my job but then never being listened to. And so they're actually looking at changing that and making it more consistent with the U.S. approach. Now, in 2007, the world's largest nuclear plant, 7 reactors, called Kashiwazaki-Kariwa, experienced an earthquake which had a ground shaking level twice its design value. This was in Japan, on the other coast. Now, at that time, none of the safety-related systems were impacted. The safety-related systems all performed perfectly because there's a lot of margin in the design, like we talked about. But that changed, and even before that, that changed the Japanese mindset. They started investigating some of the things we do. Hazard and risk are dirty words, or four-letter words in Japan. They don't gamble the way we do, right? So they don't understand probability. They don't use dice very much. They don't play poker. They don't understand, we say, oh, probably, all the time. It's a word we use every day. There you can't say risk. They say probabilistic safety.